Cool. Did you see it on the back end, Omar?
Yeah, I said I see it here. I'm taking it live on this side.
Great. I think YouTube probably is already live, but you may have to just double check that. Thank you all for bearing with us. We are not in our normal places. Well, Omar's home, but he's still building his new home studio setup. So I'm streaming from the road. I'm on a job, which is why I have such a cool hat on. So just get that out of the way. This is my uniform, essentially. And I just kind of pulled Tim up. So sorry, Tim, you're kind of in the hot seat with us tonight.
So good.
Cool. So it looks like we might be live. Just going to double check. You have it, Omar, on Facebook?
I do, but Facebook changed something again, and now I am looking for where it went.
Ah. Oh, you know what? I didn't put it in the event. I sent it just to the whatever, or well, I sent it to wherever you told me to send it.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
I
it's
found it. Yeah, when you go to the event page, you hit live video.
it is live right now.
I think so.
Okay, because it sent me somewhere else once I hit go live, and I don't know what page I'm on now, but
Oh,
I can't see any information.
oh,
Every
okay. You know what?
time
I can set it up.
Facebook keeps changing stuff.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. I think it's giving me a different stream key. It wants to. Took me to the live producer.
Yeah, so now and like the page is totally different than the previous one we used to look at.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete. Sorry, everybody. We're just trying to get this all set up. Let me see if I can, because I'm not seeing it coming in to the video. Again, sorry. We're trying to make it so that we can stream, although both of mine show that they're online from Restream.
Yeah, so I believe it is. I just don't know where it went, so I can take it.
So if you can see us on Facebook, send us a message, leave a comment, and then hopefully we'll get it and be able to. Okay. So let's see. I just changed the stream key to the one that I found in the live producer thing, and yes, there we go. Now we should be live on Facebook. Cool. Excellent. Thank you guys for bearing with us. Again, we are working from not our normal locations. So just trying to do the best we can to stream out both to Facebook and to YouTube tonight. We're going to talk about education, continuing education as far as being techs and learning more about AV. Although I don't know that I'm still seeing, I don't know I'm seeing it yet on Facebook, but we'll keep working on that, trying to get it going. Hopefully, hopefully we can do that. So, yeah. So Omar, why don't you talk a little bit about your new role so that people understand what your relationship to continuing education in AV is going to be like.
Yeah, so the short version is I'm the director of education for Evolve Media Group, and what that entails is I'll be creating the classes coming forward for Evolve. Right now, the biggest question everybody has mostly for me is, what's going to happen to AV Educate, and the reality is AV Educate is still going to be its own entity. That was one of the first things I made sure to make sure we did that. So Edemy still have free reign to kind of do whatever we need to do for the community and make it happen for you guys. What's really good about this is that essentially Edemy now going to control this chain essentially of education from stagehands to engineers to whatever the case may be. Right now we have an ability to take on more of a role of controlling that kind of workflow for everybody. So if there's things you guys want to train on that you aren't comfortable with or don't know about, we can present that here in AV Educate. The limitation with Evolve is that I'm limited to what they rent to the community, and The fortunate part in that is that they rent a lot of really cool stuff as far as the virtual hybrid, XR, AR, HX kind of all those experiences at once. That's kind of their warehouse right now. That's what they're going towards. So what's really cool is moving forward, Evolve will definitely go towards that route of the hybrid virtual uh, event of what's going on. And with that going forward, we'll continue to build on it. So right now with this quarter, we'll do a lot of free classes, and they'll be geared towards what you guys have been asking me about so far on AV Educate is S3s, E2s, Aquilons, audios for Dante's, projection mapping, things like that. What we would do on the Evolve side, this whole rest of the year essentially for free for you guys in a similar format to how we're doing AV Tech Talks. And then moving forward, we'll be able to offer certified classes that Evolve is offering with those same pieces of gear, so you guys can become certified in hybrid events, XR, CR, Disguise, Pixera, all those bigger name things, LED walls, building them for just regular LED stuff, and then building them for that virtual hybrid reality world. It's becoming more and more of a mainstay in what we're doing. A lot of the smaller studios and everything we're seeing as well are using 2MEs. We're going to go over some of that stuff as well. And there's a couple of things that's in the pipeline as well between tracking for cameras and tracking between cameras and the position in space and how those happen. There's a couple different ways to do that. There's, like everything in AV, right? There's tons of ways to skin a cat. The good thing is that I will be fine tuning some of those things with Evolve, and then AV Educate will continue to fine tune the things that aren't being covered there because of what's going on. Because obviously we have to cater to what Evolve's mission is as far as that. But the biggest thing for everybody should be that AV Educate and Evolve are still separate. They'll still be pushing out content. They'll still be doing things. They'll still be doing podcasts and AV Tech Talks. Evolve will be doing similar things on a different scale based off of that. And then I'm hoping that at the beginning of next year, I'll be able to start getting guys into training. Guys and gals, sorry, everybody's welcome. Guys and gals into training for the what I believe is going to be the future of AV. Right? Is that more IP based, Dante based, IP internet based kind of workflow? So teaching on things like that. And what's really cool right now is you guys have Nationwide is getting really big on this. You got Salt is getting really big on this. Evolve is getting big on this. There's a lot of people coming on board. A lot of the manufacturers are actually not offering training as much as they used to, and they're outsourcing this to other people. So one of the cool things is that you guys have a direct contact to me and to the community here to recommend what you guys want to lead, what you're seeing, what you're doing, what's going on out there. And my goal is, as always, to figure out how to best get you guys information and educate everybody, whether it be hands-on or virtual. I do think there needs to be a give and take, right? Some needs to be virtual, maybe some prerequisite stuff could be virtual and online type of scenario, but there are some things that you just cannot do virtually, so it has to be hands-on. And that's what's going to get a little bit tricky. I'm here figuring that out. Any input or feedback is welcome on that from you guys, especially from everybody in the community who's out there in the field right now. I've seen people out in the field as much as I can. Obviously, I have other things to attend to as well, but I do have freedom to still go out and work with everybody. So that's one of the things that I also pushed for when I came on board with this, is that I still want to be able to work with everybody in the community and keep kind of my ears and myself down to the ground and not get to the point to where I become accustomed to just these pieces of gear because we have them, right? And one of the biggest things as a freelancer is you guys are exposed to tons of gear all the time. So it's figuring out what's the best fundamentals sometimes for understanding something, so that as you experience new and different gears, different places, different locations all over the US, all over the world, you have that fundamental knowledge to take with you. So that's another thing that I really want pushing forward on. That's kind of like the bigger version of everything, right? The big nutshell of what I'm doing right now between AV Educate and Evolve and the position I have as far as director of education. The good thing is that I'll be able to attend to these more and be more frequent, be more involved. Right now, obviously, it's been a mad 8 days because it's Monday, right? 8 days of onboarding. Trying to get as caught up as I can, as quickly as I can, meet as much as the team as I can. There are already people on the team who are certified trainers, training the trainers for certain pieces of gear. There's some that are just certified to train. And me figuring out who's best for what positions and who's doing what, and then aligning obviously the goals of what they have and what I know to be accurate. So there's been some hurdles. There's been some great stuff. There's been a lot of good conversations, a lot of yeses going on, which is great. But also I am a idea man. So I have ideas. I presented them. I do like to delegate those ideas, right? Like, hey, here's the idea, yes or no, and then let's move to the next phase of that. So I am a little organized when it comes to that stuff. But the main point was that I came with a bunch of ideas for both things. I presented them. I got 14 yeses and 1 no. So a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline are already approved of. It's me figuring out the minutia of it. On the AV Educate side, Ed and me are working on two different things between audio and video right now. So there's a couple classes coming out between that directly from manufacturers. One's actually more of a creative brainchild that I really am interested to learn more about and just produce that. One of the great things about AV Educate that we're always looking for, and if you guys know anybody or talking to anybody, we are definitely always looking for that next person who's kind of created that project, like not project, like a piece of gear. So prime example is Joe DeMax created Central Control. We brought him on board when he was very young, did a whole thing on it. Obviously, we weren't the first to know about it, but we definitely the first to present it to the community, and it was a great thing to find. You guys know anybody else like that? We're always looking for that because we think that sometimes people just need that one leg up. Joe had a great product. Ed, and Chris all spoke to him beforehand about what it was. Kind of got a real feel for it before we gave it to the community. So that's always a thing on the agenda. Always looking for talking to people. Whatever space you are, level you are in the industry, we always have a way to talk and present. What you're specialized as. If you think about, even if you're a year into the industry and you just think about, there's something that I always do consistently that gets me X, Y, Z. Sharing that with your fellow colleague is definitely a big help. So I was looking for that. At this point, it's the biggest thing right now is getting the community to help us reach more than we have already in the past. Obviously, Ed and me have reached out to a lot of our contacts and other people on board. Always looking for more people to kind of help us and work with us and be a part of this. That's going to be the big push right now for the next few months. Is really getting back on track to what everything's going on. Between working right now, one of the reasons I took this role was so that I can be a little more home and be more secured with what we're doing here for you guys and making sure that we are on time and on schedule. This was a prime example today where I've been running around all day. Chris is running around all day. Ed's been running around all day. We decided to do everything we could, no matter what came out of it, just to get a show in our time slot at our times for you guys, so that we could talk to everybody here and get a real feel for it. So, besides all that I just said, the main goal tonight is to figure out, educational wise, what is it that you guys think is an effective way to train? Is what I'm saying enough, right? Like, yeah, if it works out time wise, but how do we do that? Is it better to do some kind of academy where it's an online thing and create a learning path? Is it better to do a hour-long video, 5-hour-long video? Do we want to get into that, maybe that hybrid event where we are doing some online, some hands-on, and we're adding these other elements to give the online viewers this extra little touch that their hands-on aren't getting, but then vice versa, that doesn't last as long, so the hands-on guys get a little more. I'm really curious to see what you guys' thoughts are, because one of the biggest things I'm noticing, especially with AV Educate right here and with Evolve as well and Nationwide as well, talking to Kevin, it's really a scheduling thing right now. Right now, everybody's hurting, so everybody's looking for work, and when they're getting work, they're canceling on training, and you can't fault for that, right? I can't hate on somebody for taking work. Obviously, you need the money, you need to work, and it's what we do, right? We work. We love the puzzles. We love the challenges. But moving forward, in order to continue to grow, right now there's a lot of things coming out that are new and they're coming fast. And the one thing about COVID that was also a blessing and a curse is that the technology has progressed very, very quickly and gone in multiple directions. But there's a lot of things that have made themselves known. At NDI is very main staple now. Dante's very main staple now. These are what on the surface level, these are IP protocols that are being brought in as a real, not real, real's not the right word, but they're being brought in professional level productions, even more so now, more than ever. And now Panasonic just came out with a switcher, the Chaos, I believe it's called, that is pretty much IP based across the board. So this whole shift from digital and analog to digital is now becoming true digital, where it's all IP based, and we're getting at a point to where, how do we become I don't want to say front man, but no one is an expert anymore in a lot of these things. Everybody is maybe a leader, a thought leader, or maybe proficient. An expert may be a strong word to use, but I'm interested to hear your guys' feedback on that, and interested to hear your guys' thoughts and feedback. So I'll leave it at this for a second. I see there's some stuff coming in the comments here that I'll read off as what's going on here. But again, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say out there in the community or in the panel here on Zoom side. I'll leave it in the chats area in the Q&A, something real quick, just to touch on. We can touch on that or drive that through and see what's really happening essentially, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself for a second. Give anybody who wants to talk a second. If you want to raise your hand in the participant side and join us on this side, and use your voice vocally, just let me know. Again, I'm gonna mute myself and I'll give you guys a few minutes. All right, so I just confirmed a couple of things while we were over here. So we're doing a custom stream from Zoom. Just doing a couple of things on Zoom right now. We are streaming directly from Zoom to Facebook. My room is under construction. Ed is on a job site. Chris is on a job site. I should have had my setup today, so this is on me. But again, I left a moment of silence for everybody here just to kind of give me your input and your insights and feedback on continued education here. The main goal and what's going on moving forward is how do we best give you guys what you need for continued education. Give me one second here. My daughter's leaving apparently, so I'm gonna mute myself real quick and I'm gonna say goodbye to my daughter here. So one moment, everybody. I apologize for that. But obviously the AV Educate Princess is here, so she gets my direct attention. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. The princess kind of came in the room. She's leaving to go back for their mom today. She's got school tomorrow, so I had my weekend with her. But anyways, back on track here. So continued education. The main topic I wanna get to everybody is, or to figure out from the community, and for everybody out there, really is how do we move forward when work is a priority, and is online enough of an education? Is it enough to get you guys going? What do you feel about? I'd love to hear the difference, right? How do you feel? How important is the certification to you versus getting an overview of something? How important is the hands-on versus the virtual? Obviously, you guys can go on YouTube a lot of times and look some of these things up. Some of these videos are much longer than that. Are you guys watching the 2-hour videos? Are you guys watching a 1-hour video? My goal is to figure out with you is how to best continue to give you guys the information you want, continue to train you, continue to provide that without going overboard, right? I don't want to start doing too many things and you guys are one versus the other. You can be there with another, right? So right now there's 8 of you guys in the panelist side, and I'm not looking at Facebook right now, so I apologize for that. If anybody's commented, I'm switching over here. There's 5 people on Facebook here. I see we have 1 comment. I see we have 2. Okay, so I'll comment here from Aviatic. Cool. So again, the biggest question tonight is, and for the people that were on Zoom a little bit earlier, we answered already where Evolve and Aviatic stands in all this. If you guys don't know, you can ask me in the comments, and I'll reiterate a little bit of that. I'll give you the short version because obviously Zoom heard the big long spiel. But the main goal tonight is for continued education. How do you guys want to receive information moving forward? Is the online format enough? Has it helped enough people? We've gotten tons of positive feedback about how it has helped people when these were 2-hour long formats and you had a live Q&A session. Does the live make a difference? Would a recording be just as effective for you as long as it was descriptive enough and specific enough or precise enough for the information we provided for you? Obviously, you can go down a bunch of rabbit holes, right? You can go about a bunch of different ways, but there is a general consensus. If I say I'm doing Barco, right, and I say I'm only showing you Barco how to program an EDID, right? That video might be 5-10 minutes. Maybe I go over a few what if scenarios in that video. Is that enough to really quench the appetite of the educational side, or is that just more like a, well, when I run into that problem, I'll get there? How do we go from, how much do we value certifications? Does it have to be from the manufacturer, or can it be, is it coming from an institution good enough as long as the institution is known? So Evolve was giving certifications out. Is that good enough for you guys, or is it not? You tell me within the comments within Zoom what you guys think about that. The feedback you guys give me will shape what Ed and me do in the future, pretty much. Between AV Tech Talks, AV Podcasts, it'll shape what Evolve is doing on the Evolve Academy side. It'll definitely shape how we communicate and distribute the information to you guys, what's effective, what's not effective, what the time frame that works out. So it's really an open format for you guys, or we get very little feedback and we do what we think is best, and hopefully you guys like it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. And again, I'm checking a couple things here and there on Facebook and on the Zoom side. I am trying to see some comments coming on the Zoom side. So one thing I will say real quick, I'm looking at the comments here going on. One of the things I will say is that we are trying to streamline the way we do our AV Tech Talks. With us being on the road a lot, we usually can do this timing wise. The problem is the setup that is needed to do this is pretty elaborate. So we are trying to figure that out. Last week, you guys saw us. If you joined us on the Zoom side, you saw that we tried to do it through StreamYard. There's a couple problems between the audio of Zoom coming into StreamYard because of how it gets shared in there. StreamYard is a web-based system. Zoom is a web-based system, so they're kind of two different systems that talk to each other. There's not a lot of control in StreamYard how to control a screen share, so that didn't work out too well. vMix is the way we've been doing this for a very long time. We are looking for a more streamlined, effective way to do this moving forward. So with that said, obviously it's a team effort here. So I see Raymond Sweet is saying, this is amazing. I like this format. You can be here. You can be there while I'm here. Yep. I enjoy the lives. Okay, so definitely stay with the lives, right? Lives are very important. I definitely enjoy the lives more because you guys get to interact with us, give Q&A. My reason of starting this with Ed was that we didn't like with some of the lives that you didn't get that interaction, and there was questions that were lost. So I'm definitely big on the live, guys. I don't want that to go away. How it said it's good to stay live, so that's definitely good on me. Raymond Sweet. Don't get me wrong, hands-on is really nice too, but perhaps that means people order kits and follow along. Doesn't mean we have to be in the same room for live. I like that. So that's a good route to take, right? Perhaps you order a kit or something like that. Maybe that's where the fees can go to. Is like, hey, I'll send you this box. You'll get all this information from us. One of the cool things actually that I think about it now is if we did a Barco class, right, is maybe in that email when you register, you get sent the simulator stuff in an email in a packet just ready for you to go. So that way when you attend the live side of this class, whether it's an hour or whatever it ends up being, you already have all that stuff downloaded or hopefully have it downloaded. But that's a very good point, Raymond. I like that a lot. Don't get me wrong. I read that from Raymond Sweet here. Don't get me wrong. Hands-on is really nice too, but perhaps that means people order kits and follow along. Doesn't mean we have to be in the same room for live. I'll also add to that too what I just said earlier. A lot of companies now are coming out with a simulator. So Analog Wages Counter Simulator. So that's an option there for analog wage stuff. where you register for it, you get a kit for it, then you do an online portion of it, so you can also be home or be on the go. That's one way to do it too. Another thing I thought about recently was doing classes, and this comes from actually Nathan Lively actually recommended this, doing classes 3 times a day. That way we hit different time zones. So essentially, let's say we do like 10 to 12, or sorry, 10 to whatever the time of it. Start one at 10, one at 2, and then one like at 7 or 8 at nighttime. That way, essentially, we could hit East Coast Mountain Time and West Coast, and people can come on kind of whenever they needed to. That was another idea. If you guys like that, where one class 3 times a day type of scenario, let me know what your thoughts are on that. We can try to do that as well for some of the more specific things. I think AV Tech Talks would actually stay in its time frame, but moving forward, that'd be an idea. But I do like that, Raymond. That's an awesome idea with the kits, because there is a lot of things that we can do now where we can send something out so that you guys have some simulator in front of you so you can follow along with us. Now, I guess the other question would be then, and for most of us that follow along here, assuming you have a computer and an external monitor, that would be the real, at least basic setup, right? At least one extra monitor so you can see what the instructor was saying and have the software run at the same time. But I do like that a lot. I like that idea. That's actually great feedback. I like that a lot. So Paul here says, live online sessions are great while they have themes over a course of weeks that build on each other, like audio, etc. And the community of Q&A makes it very relevant as other present different scenarios, and the team works through them better than pre-recorded. All right. So another essentially 3 pluses, right, for the live side, and kind of a packet gets sent out to also increase that live versus coming to hands-on. So I like that a lot. That's very good feedback here. So live sessions are great when they have themes over a course of weeks that build on each other. So kind of a learning path, right? So let's say you were learning vMix, for example, right? You might want to learn first how to get vMix opened up, started up, get it programmed, get content in there, right? That would be the first one. The second one goes into, okay, now when you have content in here, is how you manipulate some of that content. The next one could be, how you get that content, how you get the audio to work properly, how you get it to route properly. The next class could be how you get it to go out to the world properly. Again, in my mind, I just made that up, but that's like a learning path here. So I like that as well. The community Q&A makes it very relevant as other present different scenarios. I think that is the best part you just said there about Q&A of being alive, right? Is that when you do these pre-recorded or content that is not with that interactive piece, you lose a lot of the element of, hey, that all makes sense, but what about this, right? And instead of the manufacturers, the instructors kind of creating these what if scenarios that may not be applicable, or maybe they're having a scenario that because they're an instructor or a train the trainer scenario, they're not really getting into those problems. They're into the weeds like you guys are. You're able to bring it to the highlight where they may not even know about it. They could be, oh, I didn't know that was an issue. Here's a workaround for it that maybe you didn't know about, or vice versa. Let me put that into the queue because I didn't know that was an issue. So that's something we could bring up because that's a bug or something, right? And those I think are very powerful because it gives you that instant feedback between the trainers of the manufacturers or the trainer that's training you and what you guys are doing out there in the field. So that's a big thing I like a lot. Different scenarios and the teams work through them better than pre-recorded. So add to this if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing here from Paul is Paul saying maybe doing an online classes where it is just a troubleshooting scenario where people get to maybe just once a week kind of get together. Like I know there's a vMix forum out there by somebody who Jeff Woodgren, for example, has the Zoom Test Kitchen, right? That's a prime example where that scenario would be, hey, every couple weeks we do this Zoom Test Kitchen. You guys come on here, we troubleshoot whatever scenario you've been onto or whatever you could think might happen. We figure that out. That is actually really, really cool. And I hadn't thought about other people doing that type of format. So that's something that's really interesting to think about too. Doing a format that maybe we work with something with the manufacturers on the Evolve side and say, hey, if you guys could do this monthly with us. Test Kitchen is a great lab example. Yeah, Paul. It'd be interesting if I could use the power of Evolve to tell manufacturers that, hey, this would be great if we could partner up or team up with you guys. You just show up and every week we do a 2-hour little lab testing for your users off of your group and the community that uses them. That way you guys have real feedback very quickly from the community. Basically a quarterly thing, a monthly thing, who knows? But that's a really good idea. Test Kitchen is a great lab example. I totally agree with that. And honestly, I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't think about something like that myself. So Paul, thank you for that. That's awesome. And if we get any of these things going on, just so you guys know, I will give credit to where credit is due. You guys are coming out with some great feedback here. This is on the Zoom side. Let me check Facebook real quick. I see the 6 followers here. I see we got some stuff going on here. Hi, this guy. Okay. I see Rob White pre-recorded 30-minute sessions and the Q&A live, just like real trainings. So Rob White is saying pre-recorded 30-minute session and then a Q&A live, just like real sessions. So in Rob's scenario, this would be an hour-long talk, or maybe a little longer, right? But at least the first 30 minutes would be dedicated to getting the information out to you to where you need to, like, hey, this is what I'm going to teach you. Here it is, and I've condensed it to 30 minutes. And then after that, full-blown Q&A with the audience so that you guys can answer and troubleshoot anything that you might have thought or need an explanation on or diving into. I like to do that. A little bit more structure, right? Gives the instructor less pressure. Gives them a time limit. Hey, make your presentation for 30 minutes. Talk just about this. Focus just on this topic here. And let the community decide where they want to go after that 30 minutes and what they're missing, what needs to be added. And what's good about those two things, those as well, that Rob brings up, is that what could happen there, right, is that now you can do on the recording side, or if you guys are watching the pre-plays after the fact, say, hey, I know the 30 minutes are about this. I already know this stuff. Let me see what the questions are. And then maybe you can do a point where you can add in the comments your questions and see if there could be like maybe a part 2 if enough comments coming after the fact. That'd be something really cool. So Rob White, that's a great idea. You know, a hard 30 minutes of just, you know, just like you would do in live, right? You would do something for, 30, 45 minutes of a speaker and then 15, 20 minutes of Q&A. Maybe because we do AV, that it could be a little bit longer than that. What I will say about AV in particular is when it comes to the educational side of AV, it is hard pressed not to find an instructor that doesn't have experience. It's kind of a given, or not a given, but a must have in order to be an educator. You have to have experience in these fields in order to educate on them. No one that I'm aware of, right, is going to a manufacturer to become a trainer, has no experience in AV whatsoever. They're usually very talented people who are either care about a product a lot and they want to work with this company, or they're getting close to that. I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. This is a nice pay grade, and I get to teach people on something that I think is a very good product. Those are kind of the two bigger scenarios that I see a lot. So Rob makes a point here. That way you're not tied down to times. So I like that. Yeah, 30 minutes dedicated to this. Instructor gets what he has to get out there, and his workflow, the way he thinks it needs to get done, right? Because there's 100 ways to skin a cat. And then you have Q&A that, let's say, goes for another hour after that. You can switch to 30 minutes anytime all day, and then the Q&A can be scheduled at a later time that day. Oh, there you go. So you could do a 30 minutes video, let you guys watch the video, maybe come back later in the day and do the Q&A portion with them, or maybe another day, so you can kind of ingest that, kind of absorb what you learned, maybe get some hands-on with it within a couple of days, and then come back for that Q&A part. That's a possibility as well. I like that. Again, what I've noticed from AV Tech Talks the last year is that one of the things we have to be careful about is that ability to with time zones. Not ability, but the time zone shifts between everybody. Doing a show in California with Jeff Keithley recently and being there for about a week, a little more than a week, definitely put a pressure on me that I wasn't even aware that existed on California time to try to produce something. And timing wise, it's hard. And for anybody who watches in California, mad props, because it's like 5, 6 o'clock for you over there. So you guys are just ready, prepared, and I love it. That's good. But Rob, man, thanks for being here so much. I really like your feedback here in the comments. This is great. Let me go back to the chats over here. All right, so the chats here are going. So nothing new in the chat. So sounds like we have some good ideas here. We're about 40 minutes into this talk. We still have about an hour and 20 minutes if you guys want. But I see some good ideas. Craig here saying, I've met lots of trainers that haven't had real world experience. Big red flag. So it's interesting. So I've had the opposite experience. I've met a lot of trainers that have real world experience, even down to like the recent Carbonite training I did with Ted in Orlando. That gentleman was a prime. He was actually who I was thinking about. He did about 25 years or 30 years as an AV professional, as a broadcast switcher, using Ross. And then when he's getting close to retirement, he was offered this kind of position to say, hey, would you like to train on this product? And he was like, yeah, I love your guys' product. And he's been in the weeds and really helped push things forward. And the other reason I say too is another one of mine, Zach Larson, who does audio stuff with Caddick and somebody else. those trainers usually when they're in the field, they're also giving feedback to the manufacturers of what's going on, which is why what I said earlier about maybe doing something with the manufacturers, like a lab example, that is actually something that they look for. And now a lot of manufacturers are kind of slowing that down a little bit because they're focused more on revenue and getting sales back up. One of the things that is opening up the doors now is the community kind of pushing forward on these types of trainings. And I wouldn't feel comfortable with somebody doing a class if they didn't have some kind of experience in the field, right? At least I don't care if you were in a theater or working for the circus or Circus du Soleil for a couple of years, or you were in an opera tower, whatever, doing, like, if you had at least a year or more experience doing this piece of gear with this type of stuff constantly, you want to teach on that because you're passionate on it, I would do that. But I agree, it's a red flag. I can give you scenarios from me in college where I had a college instructor that the introduction to his career was not, it wasn't good. And he was like my broadcast engineering instructor, teacher, and I was just like, it was bad. It was bad. I won't give you that too much, but it was bad. So yeah, I've met lots of trainers that haven't had real world experience. Big red flag. Something to consider. Something to keep in mind for moving forward in the future. So that is something I will make sure that between Evolve and AV Educate, we don't fall into that realm. I would love to hear, Craig, man. I'd love to hear, if you want to get promoted here real quick, I'd love to hear your stories about some of these trainers you've met and what they were in. I find it hard to believe that you would get trained by someone who doesn't have experience and just knows how to run this piece of gear. One of the things you hear a lot about certifications, especially in any scenario where you hear about X amount of dollars for this certification, manufacturer training, is that, oh, you don't need it because I have X amount of experience on it. Like, it shouldn't be, or I'm sorry, you don't need to have experience in it. And the argument is always that, oh, those guys, they just know how to run the program or whatever it is, which sometimes is true, but that paper is a good way of saying, I've taken the time to invest in my skills, to master this craft and to be recognized for that is how I've seen it. And I myself, even during the pandemic, I took at least a class. I've been doing this for 13 years now officially. I grew up in this my whole life, but I've done a class every year for the last 13 years, at least once a year, something, whether certified or not, just to do something to say, someone smarter than me guided me on this. Now, a prime example I can give for the audience here is I've done 2 spider classes my entire career. I have never once touched a spider. I've been offered the spider gigs and I've turned them down because I don't feel confident. Even though I've done the classes and I've done one was a 2-day class and one was a 3-day class, I don't feel confident. It's a very elaborate system. Now, as an assist or a backup or like a hand in that, all day I got you. I can be there. I can help out. I can program and get you up and going. But to run it, it's different, right? There's a difference between knowing something and what it does and knowing how to do something and how to get it done properly. And I feel like with Spider, I'm not there. But Bargo, I got you. Aqualon, I got you. Ascender, I got you. vMix, I got, like, media servers, I got you. Spider, I stay away from because I'm not. I don't feel comfortable enough on that. Disguise, done fundamentals, would never run a disguise as of now. Maybe if I got trained and got certified, I'd have the confidence to. And I've done disguise classes online. I've been doing them. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to figure out. And I'm hoping to get tons of hands-on now with where I'm at. So I'm excited about that portion of it. But even then, I don't know if I would do it live because it would need to be in a controlled environment where I can really push myself and push, what I think I could do until I get quick at it. For me, it's like until you memorize a little bit of the GUI system in your mind, that you can do a phone call and walk someone through something. That's when you've got to that point where you're competent on that piece of machinery. But that's me personally. You guys might have different views, and I'd love to hear that. What do you guys think between being just a straight operator with no certification and certifications? Do you guys have your pros and cons about those, or do you have a one-sided mentality about that? Is the experience route the only route, right? Is the certification plus experience route a better route? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. I'm seeing on Zoom right now. I haven't seen anything new here, so I'm going to go ahead and Andres just says half of the time you call support, it is someone who has no experience. Andres, I got nothing for that, man. You you got me there on that one. Yeah, so I would say, yeah, yeah, Andres, man, you got me on that. I got nothing. Half the time when you call support is someone who has no experience. Here's what I will say though: if you've watched AV Tech Talks, if you watched Evolve stuff, and you've called people that are in this community, that is not the case. If you've made networking, made friends that are in this community, that's not the case. You are working with those people, right? You're dealing with them, you're communicating with them, you're solving with them. They're there to help you out. Maybe not in everything, but in a lot of things. And that's probably my experience more when I've done stuff. I will say this as well. When it comes to live events and corporate AV, a lot of things that we do with the gear that we get is not really well known. I'll give you a prime example. Panasonic one time, they didn't understand on a manufacturer level, or on the manufacturer side, not a level, on the side of the manufacturing, why we would double stack projectors. For most of you watching right now, you would think why would that not be a common thing? In their mind, it's like, why wouldn't you just buy the higher end projector? And it's like, well, that's not the only reason. We're not trying to just get more lumens out, right? We want that hot backup. We want the ability to if anything goes wrong, I still have something on the screens, right? So it's not just blacked out. If I do a 40K projector and that's double stacked to 20Ks, yeah, I don't get true 40K. I get close to that, but I also have this hot backup. So if anything does go wrong with one of my projectors out of the four that I have up for, let's say, two screens, at least I still have an image, which it means I don't have to refund money. And now if my screen goes out completely for 10 to 20 minutes, I might have to give back some money because I lost signal completely. But they didn't get it. So that's a conversation with the manufacturers. Things changed. Things got improved. Raymond says experience is better, especially in live situations. Agreed with you. Knowing what a fader does and when to use that fader is two different things. I 100% agree with that. As an educator in the industry, I want the people that take any of my classes to not only pass the evaluation, both written and practical, but also be able to explain what they've learned also. 100% agree with that. I think that's actually really great. I'm going to read that again from Greg. As an educator in the industry, I want the people that take any of my classes to not only pass the evaluation, both written and practical, but also be able to explain what they've learned to others. I think that's great. That's perfectly worded. If you can't explain the skills to someone else, you haven't learned it. That is key right there, I think, as well. If you haven't explained the skills, if you can't explain the skills to someone else, you haven't really learned it. And I think that's what you can notice about instructors too. And this is an industry where we see a lot of things. We see a lot of things. We hear a lot of things. We do a lot of things. So you definitely know when someone isn't the most competent at what's going on, and that gets picked up very quickly, and it turns people off. So that's a very good point. I'm going to go to Facebook real quick and see if anybody's contradicting that on what they're saying over here. So let's see here. Let me scroll up a little bit. So there's a couple things going on here. So, whoops. Rob White is saying, what I don't like is every time there is training, I'm either already booked or there isn't enough marketing for it and I miss it completely. Training needs to be a daily training live so we, with crazy busy schedules, can at least make one day, or once it starts going, we could hear about it and catch a day at the end of the month. So Rob Wright brings definitely a good point, which is another reason why before we got live today, one of the things I was trying to, me and Ed were talking about is that this isn't going to be the AV Tech Talks that everybody's used to, right? Where it's grandioso and we do all of our, pre-intros, our roles, our stuff, because we're all busy, our gear's all over the place. But what was key to us is the time slot we've made, right? We have given you, the community, a time slot. Every Monday, 8 to 9, we do a talk about education or talk about something in that direction. And we try to educate the community. Now, we are trying very hard to secure talks of people that are knowledgeable in skill sets that are available. And there will be change in that pretty soon, because now that there's, a consistent cash flow from my end, we're going to start paying some stuff out. So that'll be able to help secure some people so that we don't have to worry about them having work or not, because we'll be able to provide something for them to be on the show with us. On the flip side to that as well, I think if people had a consistent time frame that they knew, hey, if I log in at this time, I can get information about XYZ, I think that'll be a huge help to the community. And Rob White is saying that exactly here. So I definitely think we are pushing towards that. And I'll try my best to do that on both ends between Evolve and AV Educate to really create a consistent schedule so that you guys have this kind of plethora of opportunities that are consistent to you. So, Rob, whenever you want to hold me up to that, man, just send me a message. But hey, what happened today? But again, I'll try my best to do with it. Obviously, if I can even do it, you guys have seen me if you've been watching me the last year. I'll do this for my car if I have to. I'll sit in my car if I have to. I'll stop it on a plane. Whatever I got to do to make it happen. I try to make it happen to make sure you guys at least get something on these time slots. But again, I don't want to always come on here and not provide quality. I don't want to do quantity over quality. So one of the things as well with taking this job is to be able to start providing better quality and re-up some things. And we do have some new content coming out for the new year to kind of give us a fresh new vibe and new look. As far as what we're doing. So hopefully you guys like that as well. But that's all in the works. And that's getting off topic. So another one here is Rob White. There should be uncertified training as well. So here's a good one from Rob. There should be uncertified training as well. To me, AV Educates, AV Tech Talks would be uncertified training, right? There are a lot of competent, smart, well-rounded AV peeps, right? We'll say that I think by just seeing some of these videos and just seeing the workflow, can dive in on their own and figure out the rest of the way through. Can you say, oh, I saw an AV Tech Talks class and I'm good to run your whatever? Probably not. But can you be a little more confident that the way your thought process is, the way you think about things, the way you are processing that information for how to use that program or execute that particular job task is? Maybe, hopefully, right? Hopefully, maybe. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say it holds weight to a planner who doesn't know who we are. I think to the community it does. I think it's helped out. I think it's given people a starting point to say, hey, I know I can watch this video, I can get here, I can not go on my own and learn the rest. And I think that's a reality thing. But so my question to Rob Wright would be, Rob, do you think a company like Evolve or AV Educate, if we did something more official or was hands-on, would that backing be worth anything to the community? If we did a hands-on, let's say on, like let's say I did a hog lighting one, I did just right at the end of middle to end of the pandemic, right? We did a hog lighting class. If we did that and it was, we learned how to program it, how to operate it. Could an AV Educate, attended this be validated for somebody outside of the industry? Would an Evolve class that says, hey, Barkley 2, level 1, whatever we think that is, would that hold weight to you in the industry as an operator, as well as with the industry, right? Evolve's got a great standing. I think it would hold a lot of weight. You guys tell me, would that hold weight? Would it not hold weight? Is that even worthwhile though of an attempt, right? Should I even worry about design and look and all that to make that kind of like, hey, I attended this class with these guys, so I have at least a grasp of it, or I've gone to what their standards of understanding to this product is. Because the reality is I feel a lot of freelancers, the biggest thing for them is that they need to have that ability to grasp something, but be able to do it to cross that knowledge across multiple things. So fundamental stuff is huge in my book. And I think a lot of those fundamentals can be taught online. And I think that's like a fundamentals online about projector math, for example, that could be taught online and then that could be used as a certification. I think that would hold more weight than a hands-on class about Barkley 2 if it wasn't barcode certified or by the manufacturer directly, right? But I think the math behind a lot of these things, that could be a legit class to validate yourself as a professional. But Omar, again, if you guys...
Omar, if I can step in, I'll just say, I think... Sorry, and I had to run. I am actively working on a show site and got called on my little radio, so I had to run. Sorry about that, folks. I think that one of the things you brought up, and I think Evolve has done some of those in the past. I remember they used to have a general LED class that wasn't, and at one point they had the Absen class too. So they've had both, where it was part of the manufacturer's specified training. And I think they were the only other training site that could offer Absen specific certification. But then they also have had just a general LED class where it wasn't necessarily manufacturer specific. And I think there's plenty of room for those sorts of classes that maybe don't carry a certification, from the manufacturer, but you can probably get a lot more information from, especially being manufacturer agnostic, because you'll get a general overview of multiple products, or products maybe you haven't seen. Maybe an LED class, and I'm just using LED as an example. You get to see Novastar and Brompton, where if you took a manufacturer class, you'd probably only see one or the other, depending on what they primarily use. So I think that there's definitely room for that for sure. Projection too. There was projection mapping classes. I've seen that were not a specific manufacturer's projectors. It was just mapping in general. I think a switcher, like a high resolution switcher class, where maybe it's not an E2 certification or an Aquilon certification or Spider certification, but it's just a, how do you build, or how do you approach building looks, or what are some of the things? Because for the differences between those products, there's more similarities, in workflow. And like once you kind of know one, you could step up to another one and not be totally lost. So that was a call for me on my radio. So I'm going to let you go back to talking.
No, I think Ed said it best. Or what's different similarities they have, they're more similar. And I'm sure I just butchered it, but I think that point is really I think that's really spot on, because that for me that is the reality, right? Like obviously I'm more of a video guy than an audio guy. One of the things I think is most prevalent, and I've done this with AV Educate when I did hands-on stuff before pandemic. There is a progression of knowledge for switchers, and I try to show this in a class. I try to do, and luckily I used to be with AFPC, and they were a Blackmagic house. And the example I would give, or the training I would do, was a full 10-hour day. And what it was is I started off on the ATEM switchers, the single row of numbers, right, for inputs, and just yellow and red, preview and program, right? It was a visual cue of what was going on. And once someone understood that, then we'd go to a 1ME switcher, right? And then showing them the 1ME switcher. And then showing you, hey, this color is this bottom row here. This color is this top row here. And once they grasp that, right, there's a 1ME. Then we'd go into a little bit more of the settings, right? So same thing as an aux here, the aux is over here. Same buttons. A lot of the same MP1, MP media player, same thing over here. And a lot of crossovers between the panel and the GUI system, right? Obviously the GUI system doesn't necessarily change too much. It just expands on what the ability are. And then you go to a 2ME and you go, hey, so this is a 2ME, right? What do you see different? All you see is a 1ME with another row up top, and here's some other things you can do with this 2ME, right? And I think that's a very fundamental growth of way to learn things, right? And I come from a Barco house where my first thing was an Image Pro and a Screen Pro. It was like, those were like the first things I learned on. And one of the first things I ever learned was factory default. Yeah, anything you turn on an Image piece of machine, you go to factory default and you reset it. But for me, learning an Image Pro and a Screen Pro, like that progression with Barco was perfect, because I learned a lot about signal flow. I learned a lot about signal flow, particularly between VGA, HDSDI, HDMI, and things like that from the Image Pros. And then once I kind of mastered that, was really good at it, I did some ghetto stuff and did like a double stacked Image Pro to get like 2 outs and out of one, and do some weird stuff. A ghetto matrix is what I called it. Once I got good with that, though, then it was like, okay, this. Let's get you to a Screen Pro, right? Screen Pro 2s. And like now I moved up a little bit, and I already had all this knowledge about inputs, signal flows. I had all this knowledge about how to map things and do things, and it was like, okay, cool. So what I had to learn about this one was the interface, right? The controller a little bit about what's where, what's going how, and because I know what it does, I know where it needed to go. It's just, well, where's it's over here now, or this is over here now. So, and the layout wasn't too different from the other ones. The colors were a little bit different because I had options. But essentially it was very simple. Once I got the controller to talk to the brain, okay, cool. Hit, take, cut. My functions were the same.
With the Image Pro 2, you had to learn that you had to save everything twice. That was like the gotcha with every tech who maybe had used like a Pres Pro, and then maybe even like they'd been working on 902s for a long time, and then they get the shop is a little short, and they send the Image Pro 2s. It's been a while, and that's the thing I find was tripping a lot of people up, was that they forgot to double save, and or their Z layer. There were definitely quirks about it, but as you mentioned, the basics of how to switch was very similar. It's just, like you can transfer a lot of those skills. Just popped in my head something that could be like maybe not like a whole day class, but like even little workshops that I find trip people up a lot, or people have a lot of questions on that I see in forums, is maybe about keying, keying and doing cut fill, and not how do you specifically do it on like a Blackmagic or on whatever switcher, but like the concept of it, like what are you doing when you're keying something out, and where you put that in the signal chain. If you're using like a downstream key or an upstream key, like what is that and how is that different? Because I think a lot of people, could take away with that knowledge because they've heard these things, and maybe they've played around on their ATEM Mini and gotten the thing they need to work. But it's like, why does that work? And how does it work in the way that you need it to do? And then like cut and fill, that's another whole thing, which works, great when you have it working. It's a great way to do it. But the concept of it more so than like, this is how you do it on on an ATEM versus an E2 versus whatever, those kinds of things I feel like are what slip through the cracks with, even when you learn these things on the job. You might be sitting behind a V1 who is doing it, but and you say, oh, okay, that's how I make it work. But what are you actually doing? And when you change some of the settings, the foreground setting, or when you're moving these adjustments or making these adjustments, what is that actually doing, and all that. So I think like workshops for that sort of thing make a lot of sense. And then of course, Omar, and sorry, I'm going to spit a couple of things out before I get called on the radio again. Omar and I were talking the other day, and I think this might be more up Tim's alley too, who's with us on the panel tonight, is audio training. I think there's a real lack of audio training for AV professionals, other than if you go get Dante certified. There's, you can get certifications on consoles. I've taken the Yamaha classes and the D Live classes and things like that, and those are nice. Some of them turn into a little bit of marketing fluff, because they want you to buy consoles. So you train people on the consoles that you want them to buy. But, what about just audio concepts? We did a whole month on audio, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface. And I feel like what we covered is the stuff that isn't covered, at all. And I see a ton of questions in a lot of the forums. I'm in a lot of the Behringer, the MNX32 forums, where there's a lot of questions, because those level of consoles are geared towards a certain segment of the market, maybe a more entry level to digital consoles segment of the market, all the way through professionals. But there's still a lot of questions about, gain staging and, routing and things like that. And I think more audio training, and it's not biased because I'm an audio guy primarily, but it's definitely, sorry, my buddy Chris must have gotten camera shy there for a second. But yeah, no, I think that I think we could benefit from having more audio training. So if anyone agrees, please let us know in the comments. I think there would be a great class would be audio for video people, audio for the video engineer, so that there's a better fluency maybe for video professionals to be able to know what they need and ask with the right terms, and understand how are we doing lip sync, for example, or things like that. And now with so many, there's now 2 switchers out there that are Dante enabled on board, and Dante AV is taking more steps into the market. It would be good for video guys to get more involved with audio, like just a better overall understanding. They don't have to be A1s, but just understanding some stuff. Tim, do you have any? I know you're a little bit more audio centric. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on that? Is there something you would like to see?
What we sort of covered in Audio Month was even useful for me as a long sort of standing tech. But I think we sort of in the world that we're living in now, where we're doing a lot more live streaming and hybrid events, I think we really, even me as an audio person, I want to know more about the video side of it. How the audio path integrates in with this video, because it doesn't necessarily always, it's not as seamless as it would like to be.
That's a, let me do that. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I actually was just on a job where we ended up doing a bunch of audio embedding and de-embedding. And one of the things we ran into, there were 5 rooms on this particular show, and with 3 of the rooms, they were on the other side of the hallway in this hotel. So we ran fiber to them instead of SDI. So there was, coming out of the video switcher, they hit the audio de-embedder, then SDI to the fiber converter, then fiber to the other rooms. Then they had a fiber converter back to SDI, and then the audio de-embedder. That was on the one side of the room. On the other side of the hotel, in rooms 4 and 5, instead of 1, 2, and 3 had that set up. In room 4 and 5, it went just SDI to the audio de-embedder, to the audio embedder. Audio embedder on the SDI, then a de-embedder in the rooms. So the latency path was different for those 2 setups, because that fiber converter and deconverter on both ends added more video latency. So they had, different lip sync, and it was an issue. And, how those things get done, and they probably just could have, there could have been another way to do it maybe, but the video guys, were like, I don't understand why you have different lip sync in from these different rooms. And I said, because you added these fiber converters, and those are adding 2 of them. So the frame of latency each on them adds 2 more frames of latency. So it's a different path, So yeah, I think that makes sense. And then on your end, like you mentioned, Tim, like, how much do audio guys really know about embedding audio onto SDI, other than maybe if the video guy says, here's an embedder, plug into this, and how does that work? And, how many audio people know that there's, there can be multi-channel audio traveling down SDI. And if you've got the right gear to encode and decode that, you can, you can use SDI to transport audio across places if you have the embedders and de-embedders, multiple channels of it. So it's very interesting stuff. So yeah, that would be, I think, a good class too. A good concept is like video for the audio guy. And I don't know. I hope Omar is taking notes, and we can make these things come to life. But
I'm always taking notes when you talk.
But yeah, no, that was a great insight, Tim. So cool. What else do you got, Omar? Do we have any other comments coming in?
Yeah. So I had one that came in right after this. So obviously, Rob Weiss said there should be on certified training as well, which I think we dove into as far as we can get. Victor says no one from the street can take a TriCaster class and get booked. You have to build a reputation and years doing shows, etc. You have to have show experience to get booked. How many flight hours you have on it, like a plane? Do we agree or disagree? I think that's true. It's like down here in Florida, we have a lot of that Full Sail graduates that they want to come out, and no disrespect for Full Sail, by the way, because you guys are fantastic once you learn, right? But they come out of the school immediately thinking that they can be the lead positions a lot of the times. And what ends up happening real quickly is that they're like, hey, I don't know you that well. You have no reputation, right? Because it's still a word of mouth industry. And we're not going to do that. You get like a stagehand position, or you get an assist position. You never get that lead one until you've proven yourself worthy, right? And this goes back to what you and me had to say all the time, right? Like there's a difference in knowing when to do something versus what something does. And experience is where that comes in. You knowing, like I'll go back to the Spider thing I talked about earlier. Just because I know how Spider works and programs and everything, I don't feel like I'm quick enough is the problem to do a live show, because there's a lot that's happening fast and quick. And Spider's workflow is always moving forward versus a media server where I have preview program. So I kind of have, my mentality, my workflow from being from the switcher side is preview program. not move forward, create content, push that out, right? It's a little bit different when it comes to that content stuff. And for me, it's like, I don't like that. Now, I have also been taught how to make a preview program for the Spider so that you have that ability to do that. Not very hard. But again, I have to build all that. And I'll even go on further. I've also been told by Spider operators that are more senior to me, hey, I have a thumbnail bring. It's like my preset go-to. It's what I load up every time, and I work off of that. Great idea. I've done it. I still don't feel comfortable, and I don't feel fast enough because I don't do it enough. Now, if I was able to do something monthly or quarterly, and I, more stuff, and I knew the show wouldn't be, super, crazy heavy on what the production was, sure, why not? Maybe I'd jump on there. But most of the times when you get a Spider, it's a big show, tons of pixels, tons of things going on. You don't really have time to be messing around and second guessing yourself, and I'm not there. So again, just because I have the knowledge of something doesn't mean I'm experienced enough to do it. And that's really what I think that's really what people are saying here, right? Is that ability to do both. And back to what Ed was saying about the audio portion here, it's very true. If you guys want us to do more stuff on the audio, and audio and video side of things, I would love to do another class because I think we didn't really touch enough on it. But I'd love to do another class on vMix audio for the community, because we did one for about 2 hours. It was okay. I thought it was okay. We covered a lot. We got bogged down on things that were surface level, and I think there was things that we could have gone deeper on, especially with such a good community out here where you guys have multiple ways of doing things. You could do a class pretty much every month of a different way of how to do it, right? You could do it between analog boards. I have a Robo podcast here, so I usually do my stuff. I also do a VB audio cable. I've had problems with VB audio cable, and I've had results for that. So that's another way you could do things as well. You can also do things with Loopback. It's another way to do things. Another program that's similar to VB audio cable. But again, there's other guys that they want the physical control of a board with the faders and the audio coming in there, and it gets sitting out through one channel. vMix, you can do it through NDI. There's tons of ways to do that. There's a whole NDI route to do now with audio that you can do now. We didn't even cover that because it wasn't even part of it. NDI 5 wasn't even out when we did that class. So that could be a part of it too. Like, hey, when you're doing NDI video and you're doing the audio through that, here's things you got to know about. Here's how to do things, how to affect, how to do gain, how to do structure, and how to do gates and things like that. What they're for, what's best practices, what not to do with them, what to do with them, and there's debates on this all the time, right? For example, one of the debates I got into, and I wouldn't say debate, a very educational experience. One of the experiences I got to with a buddy of mine was that I use, and particularly, again, I'm not a phenomenal audio guy, but I can make it so that there's no feedback. What I try to do most of the time when I'm doing vMix or an in-person breakout room, for example, I'm very quick to also speed up my process. So it's kind of a little bit of being a lazy audio engineer, I guess. I will turn on the gate on a mic, on a vocal channel and a compressor. And I'll kind of use those as my way to gauge things so that I can keep that voice within a certain range, so I don't get feedback, so I don't get anything. I've done it enough times that I know what the clipping sounds like when the gate's not at the right settings. I know what the compressor sounds like when it's wrong, if the person's going too loud. I know a little bit of that auditorily from some trial and error, some doing this in the warehouse and figuring things out, and then some things from communicating with other more senior engineers than me. They're audio guys that don't like that, but they, if this is the right you're going to save on time and for just focus for like a breakout room, here's what I would do, right? Scenarios. And trust me, those don't come easily. If you guys are listening right now and you're doing audio, you're probably like, yeah, I wouldn't give you that information easily either. But I mean, it's a way to do things. And there is, for me personally in vMix, there always seems to be this noise on vMix Caller that I was able to get out at like negative 40 dB. I don't know what it is about that. It seems to always be there, and I always able to take it out. Well, with negative 40 dB on the audio when it comes to vMix calls. Why that is, I don't know. Maybe it's just my machine. I've seen it on other machines too, though. So I don't think it's just my machine. I think it's a vMix Caller thing in general. But that's something that I've done a lot of, and I've gotten a lot of heat on both ends of that. So that's a great topic there to talk about. I think another thing me and Ed talked about one time when it comes to audio and video is this whole Dante workflow. A lot of times we say mix minus to the audio engineer. Oh, you got to mix minus this for the Zoom stuff. It's not the way you think it is. It's not that easy as just mix minus. It's there's more involved to it, and there's more going on the matrix side of the boards that the audio guys are doing that they're usually just not telling you about. And the way that you may have learned it with vMix right now or Blackmagic isn't exactly the way it translates to on the boards. So you're like, oh yeah, you just do this and that. And it's like, yeah, but that's not how it really works on the board. That's kind of how vMix works on audio for vMix, right? And that's not the real world sometimes. And I think some guys are getting confident in their abilities to do things a little bit without really realizing, hey, they're making it work off what you're telling them because they're getting it, but that's not how it translates to the board itself. They're just not telling you that because they don't got time. They got to make shit happen.
Also, oftentimes the term mix minus is used, but really it's building a completely separate mix for those sends. It might be pretty close, but and then you get requests. Someone will say, "Oh yeah, wait, can I get a little more of that in on this feed and a little more of that?" And then it's not just the mix minus; it's now you're building a custom feed for the director or for I often get directors who say, give me everything, and then I want the VTCs down 10 dB. You know what I mean? Like they want all the video rolls just a little bit lower, so that they can still hear comms in their other ears. So mix minus is somewhat of a misnomer and thrown around. And as an audio guy, we know what you're talking about, but it's really generally a whole separate mix. And for beginners, it kind of gets confusing, I think, because they do just try to send the mix minus and they're finding out why aren't people happy with that? And it's like, well, because they really meant something different, but they're using a term in a very general sense, like Kleenex. We're just throwing out mix minus. Hey, you get a mix minus, you get a mix minus, but no, they're actually completely separate mixes. And depending on who you're sending it to, your mix minus is different anyway. Because if you have multiple callers, you're going to take them out of their own thing. So, mix minuses, you could have many. And I think when we had Mac on, Mac Carr, he talked about, he does every day, his daily gig. I think he said he has 24 mix minuses going. So, it can get very big on very big productions, how many of those you're doing and keeping track of who's actually getting what. But, just wanted to jump in with that because mix minus is often used, and really we're sending a completely different mix, or it's mix minus 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 this minus that, and then minus 10 dB of that and this. It's not a true mix minus. What else we got?
That's about it. So I'll just read out some of the Facebook comments, and maybe you guys want to dive into some of those here. So. Sorry. So Roz emphasized, I mean any piece of gear, not just TriCaster. Of course, you mean any piece of gear. I understood that. Rob Weiss says, of course, as well. Here's an interesting one. There's been a debate, right? Rob Weiss says, a weekly class. I'll tell you my side of this, Rob White, and I'll let Ed say a different side of this. I think a weekly class is too much content at once, right? Even if it was across audio, video, lighting, maybe not that scenario, but I think a weekly class is a lot. It's a lot to do, a lot to prep, a lot to get ready, a lot to push out. And I feel like unless like pandemic was happening again, where people were home, it's hard to find people who are willing to teach. It's definitely in this industry, it's hard to find people who are willing to teach in AV, and not so much because they're not skilled, more the fact that they're doing behind the scenes stuff because they like being behind the scenes, right? They don't want to be the face. And it's a challenge to do a weekly class because of one of that. Two is make sure the content is relevant. One of the things that AV Educate, I don't say struggles with, but is cautious about is when we try to stay ahead of the game with content, it almost felt that we would schedule things a month out in advance, and by the time 2 weeks passed, the relevance wasn't there for that topic anymore. Like it was like people aren't really, we're gone to this, and the market changes very quickly as far as technology goes and as far as the community goes. Yeah, there are some basics that we can talk over a bunch of times, and we can have different instructors teach different ways of the same thing because that's always so extremely valuable. But trying to get ahead of the game, a lot of the times I feel that we miss the mark on what's really important at the time. So it's a tricky slope we play. And if you have that I feel it's a 2 week window here where if you have 2 weeks to kind of really fine tune something that needs to be done or said or executed, you get a better results at the end of it. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but these are kind of my thoughts when it comes to doing weekly classes, and it's been it's been difficult. Which, to my own irony here, we do technically 8 classes a week, right? Because we do the podcast as well, and we try to keep those as relevant as possible. So that's my 2 cents about the week classes. Rob White
Yeah.
says, "Go ahead."
I was gonna say it gets tough. It's definitely, you have to. I think that has to be a very structured sort of kind of class if you were going to do something like that, and it would have to be. That would be better if it was like a manufacturer type of, or not necessarily manufacturing, but like a specific piece of gear. So it's like learn everything you want to know about X, and we're going to do a 5-week class once a week, and we're going to A to Z on whatever it is, and just getting people to, as Omar said, to have the time to set aside a time, the time aside to do it. And when do you do it? As we get into the fall, obviously, like Sundays is football, and Saturday too, if you're a college football fan, and then there's Monday night football, and I think there's football on Thursdays too. I don't watch football, but I'm aware that there's a lot of football a lot of the time in the fall. So football seems to be pretty popular. It's strange, but and I understand that that's as Tim's camera popped back on. I understand that that's an American thing too. But just finding a time that someone isn't going to complain about whenever you schedule it, which even this show we find all the time, is tough to work around those schedules. But I do think you could do like a week, a series, or like a special event kind of thing where it's like, hey, we're going to dive into to this, or more workshops. I would rather see there be like a 4-week, month-long workshop where people come together and they get some instruction, and then they get like a piece of a project each week that they have to work on during the week on their own time. And maybe groups so that people are, networking, but also doing like this remote stuff, depending what it is, that could be a great learning experience, but the people would have to be committed. So, where right now we're offering AV Tech Talks has always been free. The podcast is always free. I think that those kinds of things only work as a paid sort of thing, because people have to be invested to want to show up every week. So, it's a tricky thing. And I think I've talked about it in the past, like I used to be a concert promoter, and for years, I never made bands sell tickets. This was the thing that I just didn't do. And then what's called pay to play, if anyone's in the music industry, they understand pay to play means you have to sell a certain number of tickets to your show to be able to play. And this was becoming such a prevalent practice that the bands who I had been helping for so many years and getting them on shows and not making themselves tickets, they would not be promoting or selling tickets to the shows I was putting on because they had too many other shows they had to sell tickets for. So then I had to, for like my big summer festival that I put on every year, make those bands sell tickets, only because if I didn't, then they were so overcommitted, they wouldn't sell any tickets. And then I would be out, tons, I was investing, tens of thousands of dollars to put those things on. So having those things be free is just tough because, as soon as something else comes up, people will drop it. But if they've paid and they've invested something, then I think a weekly class could work. But as a free class, it's kind of tough. And we see it here, being here every week. We ask our panelists to come in, and we ask our attendees to show up, and it's who shows up, and we still give the information whether people are here or not, because people will watch it on the replay. But if we were going to do it as a real structured kind of class situation, I think that it doesn't work as easily if it's a free endeavor. So, but it's a great idea, and I think it can be useful, especially for a topic that you can't just cover in one single 2-hour session. And like I said, if workshops, if you can do something where you teach somebody something and then they go home, okay, great, I got this concept, now I can build this project. Oh, great, I have something to show. I bring it next week. Oh, I had these problems. I don't know where I got lost. And then, you make it an interactive kind of thing. Then that's pretty useful. I think there's room for that for sure.
Yeah, no.
What other comments we got? unless
So
you have something to
Andres,
say.
no. Andres here says you also need time to play with what you learn. I agree with that as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm going back to the comments here. Sorry, I got lost in the minutia. Blah blah blah. blah. Oh, people. So people could sign up for a yearly pass to attend any class that year. I like that concept. Rob says that day with Eli is priceless. Ed is right. Hell, a screen building class with all the different types of screens of stagehands would be awesome. Oh, I got it. Sorry. Ed is right. Hell, a screen building class with all the different types of screens for stagehands would be awesome. Agree with that. Setting up basic screens, 2 DSM show on E2, Aqualon, Spider, Ascender, ATEMs. I mean, yeah, I feel like what Rob just said there, setting up a basic 2 screen, 2 DSM show with E2, Aqualon, Spider, that's like your 80% of what we're doing most of the time. And if you can get that down pack and master that, once you get bigger than that, it's just redoing that, and the map changes very very little bit. But back to what you had said earlier, Ed, it's like you're still doing the same things, right? Just slight little things have changed. But again, once you master that, you're pretty much good to go. Time to do a class. I'll teach. I'll help. That's from Rob White again. Rob also says, why not night classes too? Why just during? Okay, so I can answer this one. Why not night classes too? Why just during the day? Most of us stay up late. Classes start at 9 p.m. So I'll start on that from the AV Tech Talk side as far as my scenario or the team scenario. I'll speak for the team in general. We have families. We give a lot of time away from our families to do the show, as well as the in between the shows. We are constantly connecting, talking, networking, calling, texting, building content for this one night. So it does take a lot of time away from it. Fortunately, we are Mad Men fanatics, right? And we love what we do. So we're able to execute these, and our families are pretty much supportive of us 99% of the time. Sometimes the wives get a little bit mad, and we got to spend some time with them or take them on vacation, whatever it is. But that's expected, right? They're family. This does take a lot of time out of our already busy schedules, right? And if you guys are watching this as well, I'm sure you're busy as hell. You're probably cooking something or cleaning something or doing something while you're listening to us at the same time. So if you're not just sitting here looking at me talk to you right now, you're probably also doing something else at the same time. You already know what it's like, right? On the other side to that, on the manufacturer side, I can tell you some of that stuff. A lot of these manufacturers, they work 9 to 5, and they're done. They don't want to. They work 9 to 5. A lot of these people that are in these positions are career people. They're 9 to 5, or they've transitioned to that because they want to be more 9 to 5, and they don't want to work past that time. And it could be the same scenarios where they have family and kids, and they want to have that time with them. So they're like, I work from this schedule. I don't want to do past that. Maybe, all right, like Ed and me being able to pull off. Once in a while, we'll get one of them to do a night show with us, right? NDI, fantastic gentleman from overseas at like 2 in the morning, right? And not just him, but other people as well overseas. They'll do but that's 2 in the morning. The family's already gone to bed, so it's more like just okay, I gotta stay up overnight and talk to these guys. No big deal. On the flip side, to the U.S. side, that has been pretty much a roadblock. If it's at nighttime and you're in the U.S., they will pretty much defer it over overseas, and then we get a yes, or they'll just say, "Hey, that this doesn't work for us," and it doesn't happen, and then you guys don't even know about it, and me, Ed, and Chris have wasted whatever amount of time we wasted trying to make that happen.
It's amazing to me how we've had much better luck getting our European counterparts to come on, manufacturers to come on and do episodes when it's like 2 in the morning from Isadora, NDI, Universe Control. All of them are Joda Max for Central Control. All of them are in Europe, and at least 5 to 6 hours difference from us here on the East Coast. So of the U.S. and it's been in the U.S. Andy Carluccio, he's come on. He's on the East Coast as well, and he's been able to do it in the evening. But I think he's one of the few U.S. distributors and manufacturers who's partaken. But yeah, the Europeans, they'll stay up late for us. It's tough to get the U.S. based representatives to come on and chat with us even at 7 p.m. in the evening. So East Coast time.
I mean, how Australia comes on, India comes on, Japan comes on. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. And if we, if only we were on the West Coast, Omar, we'd have it a little easier. We could do the later. It would be late for the East Coast people, but I got to remember it's only what time is it? It's what, like 5:30
5:30. Yeah,
on the
5:30,
West Coast right
6:30.
now. So,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, cool.
I think I've caught up with the comments, unless anyone wants to bring up anything else in the comments. But yeah, I mean, honestly, night classes, that's really the reason that happens a lot. And then the downside here, Rob, the other thing too is when they have said yes and they figure out the nighttime schedule, it's more like, okay, we record it, and that's kind of where we stop and say no, because it takes away from the live part, which is what this is about, is that live interaction with you guys. Obviously I can't sit here and talk for 2 hours. Maybe I could actually at this point now in my life. I've gotten used to talking so much. I'm always using my voice at this point. I don't know if I could maybe do a 2 hour talk about something as long as I had Ed or somebody with me. But yeah, if you guys weren't in the conversations here, these 2 hour talks would not last. No one would tune in that long anyways, because it'd be the same. It'd be reiterating whatever I could think about for 2 hours, which just sounds boring as it is. But on a recording side of this, one of the downsides of recording is that your pull comes from a small group, right? And it's usually a group of people that are aware of the product and what it can and can't do. So the conversation gets geared towards, here's what it does, and then it gets pigeonholed into this. This is what it's supposed to do, and this is what it does. Versus when you guys get involved in the community side, in the comments, and in the talking on the panel side here, these questions come from the real world experience, right? Not just, well, the program says it does this, and we say it does this, and we can make it do this for this demo. Like, that's great, and you learn this one very linear format. But when there's questions come in from the live side, like, hey, my E2 tri-combo card, I tried to do 8 layers on it. Why couldn't I do that? And the answer could be, well, you got to take resources from this one for this one, or, oh, if you're doing 1080p at 60, maybe it was because XYZ. They might know the answer because of the architectural, right? And that might be one of those scenarios where we don't talk about that too much, because that's, it doesn't look good when we say these things. But you as an operator, you're like, yeah, I need to know these things because I'm constantly trying to do this and it's not working out, or it does, but I have problems. Like, those questions really become valuable. And for the guys who we gave thanks to last week for teacher appreciation, those were genuine operators, no agenda, no nothing. They were just teaching you a workflow that they know that works. And you guys were asking questions. Some of these were deep, and they were able to answer the best that they could off of their knowledge, or they just told you straight up, hey, I don't ever play with that side, so I don't know, which I had tons of respect for. But there was questions that were being asked. It's like, there's questions constantly get asked I would never have thought of. There's questions tonight that have got commented on or stuff that I would never have thought of. At least I may like this idea and think this is a great idea, but until someone else agrees with that, it's just an idea. And that's kind of whatever. That's that in a nutshell. Sorry. So the next thing, sorry, the next thing here, I'll go into is from Lewis. Lewis says, "Omar, you are so right. Every time I watch, I'm either working on my computer, cooking, eating, taking the dog out. We all have families, yeah. And honestly, it's a lot to commit to what we do, and we've grown a lot, and we've tried to bring in people and tried to bring in things to make happen. And obviously, the team has been consistent with some people and not with others, and it is what it is, right? This is a labor of love that will grow and continue to grow. But the way that we give education, are we at the forefront of that? Are we seeing and saying that this is a format that works because I'm able to watch it with you, communicate with you, and then watch replays and get information from it later? Or is this just, I'd rather pay $1,000 for certification because that's going to hold more value than this? Robert says, it's true. Sometimes I forget I have a family when I get into it. Yeah, and we've done talks about this on the podcast side, guys. If you have family, it's hard to be on the road. It's hard to do things, and there are, I don't want to say best practices, but there are things you can do to make it easier for your family that seem to be a time consumption thing, right? It's like, I have to do all these things, especially when you're on the road. For prime example, when you're on the road, it looks like appearance-wise, right? You're having all this fun. You're on vacation. You're in a vacation destination. You're going out to drink with your buddies, and it's like, well, no, I'm going to drink with the clients. I'm taking pictures to show that I'm busy and active, and then I'm working with other colleagues to show that, hey, they're working too. I'm working all day in a ballroom. I go to a ballroom all day. I maybe get to go out to eat, which is about all I get to do, and then I go back to my room all day. Like they don't see that part of it. They just see, oh, you took a picture of you at, this location and look at the sun. It's beautiful. It's like, yeah, I was outside for like maybe that 5 minutes. I took a picture of it, and I posted it because that's the one time I got to go outside. So I wanted to say, hey, I can get out of the ballroom. But to the outside viewer, the optics to the family sometimes, because it's very hard to comprehend what we do sometimes, is oh, you're just out there having fun, hanging out with your buddies, and going to eat every night. And it's like kind of, but no, I'm showing face to my client. I am primarily in a ballroom 10 hours, maybe 12 hours a day, depending if I get fed or not, right? I pretty much go back to my hotel room and then I go back to the ballroom the next day. They don't see all that stuff because we try to only take pictures of the good stuff. No one's taking a picture of them like, oh, I'm in the hallway of the ballroom. Oh, look at me in the hallway today, day 4. No one's doing that. No one's going to a sports event and showing them up in the catwalk. I'm in the catwalk again. Like those pictures aren't being posted, right? You're seeing like the aerial view, like, oh, whoever, Kobe Bryant's down there, Michael Jordan back in the day, he's down there, like something like that's being posted. Something that looks like it could be, I'd love to be in that position. We're not sharing those things. And I think that's hard to comprehend sometimes, especially when your family just maybe has that 9 to 5 job and they're getting home and they're just 5 o'clock till bedtime. They're just hanging out. Like, why can't you just call me? Like, well, I've been working all day. I've been working and talking, communicating and doing things. And a lot of us that I think are busy right now, we're not only just busy working, we're busy hustling as well on the side, right? We have side hustles going on. I mean, shoot, Ed and me have AV Educate Constant, and we have our own business going on, and families and kids, and it takes a lot. I can only imagine some of you guys out there with the same or with more kids than us, or with a bigger family, or even like there's some people I know who they have their big families, right? They're taking care of their parents or their grandparents or something like that. So that's an additional thing, and kids got activities to do and sports to do. Like, this could be a whole other conversation. Sorry, I'm getting way off topic here. The point is, nighttime is difficult, especially when it comes to family, and it's one of the big things that, as a manufacturer, they're getting paid whether they do it at nighttime or not. So they don't have any incentive to go that route. And unfortunately, the good thing about AV Educate is that we are not biased and we don't have any affiliates to anybody, so we are able to do whatever we want, however we want to do it. And this is why we're able to give the community a more attentive structure of information, because there isn't anybody holding the there's nobody holding the purse of ours to say you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, no, we do it this way because we are you guys. We know what it takes, we know what it is, and this is the best way that works for everybody's time frame. And the reason we even do it on Mondays, because we know that Mondays, historically on everybody's schedule, is usually the day that you're off, unless you're on a long run. Most of the time, Mondays are the day that you're going to be available. Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday sometimes. Thursdays through Sunday, most of you got work to do, so you're busy working. But the main point to all that is that this is what it is. Sorry, I'm getting emotional here, man. I feel like I'm just talking about a lot of things about the family. I'm thinking about mine, and my daughter just left, and I didn't get to really give her a proper goodbye because I was here with you guys. So you guys saw that. She came and said bye to me. I gave her my attention for a moment, and then came back to you because I'm committed to this community and to what you guys need and stuff like that. But we got about 20 minutes left. I don't know if there's anything else we need to talk about as far as continued education. I feel like you guys are definitely on the wavelength of let's continue to do what it is we're doing, right? Maybe even pushing forward to say getting manufacturers on board with the idea of doing some of these things virtual, and maybe instead of doing hands-on classes where it's 2-3 days out of my work week, you do a web series. Web series gets done, and maybe that becomes part of your curriculum, and the hands-on becomes like a day class or something where you're just doing, hey, you took all these classes, you confirm it however you want to confirm it, but you're saying you took these classes, here's the hands-on for this, and now there's a test involved, and it's up to you whether you're honest or not to them, whether you did those classes or not to answer this test, and maybe that's the way moving forward, right? If there is a online platform that you guys can learn from and get to stuff, obviously that would be a little bit different. Rob brings up like paying a yearly membership or something or things like that. How do we? The question is, how do you make sure you're getting the information you want while still having a busy schedule so that you can do it at your own pace? And the only way to do that is pretty much online. But at the same token, how do you make sure the online one isn't just a bunch of information? You know, like one of the classes that I can give out there is Dante level 1, 2, and 3. I think those classes are pretty good. I wouldn't say great. Borderline great, I'd say. They are very informative. They're very intuitive. They're easy, digestible chunks of information. I only got to level 2. It took me a long time to even pass level 2. I even called Ed and did some stuff because I was like, I feel like I know this and I'm not getting this test right. And it ended up being just some simple math stuff that I was messing up on in the end. But that versus, let's say, a TriCaster class. TriCaster class was also bite-sized chunks of information that I thought was very good. But it was very dry. It was like just watching a GUI system and somebody talk to the GUI system. It was kind of like death by PowerPoint. It said death by GUI. And I don't know if it's because of the show that we do here and how we do things live that I was kind of like, this could be so much more. Or if it was just everybody has the same opinion about that class. And honestly, I did the class test. I passed it. I did great. It wasn't crazy hard. It was definitely informative. I learned a lot. Maybe there could have been like we're saying here, a learning path. Maybe there has to be more work done on the manufacturers on the pre-pro side of saying, like Disguise have done recently, right? Disguise has these separate kind of job titles and job positionings that happen in Evolve. I'm sorry, in Disguise. That if you want to learn this path, you take this learning path. You want to learn this, and it's all the same software essentially, and a lot of them overlap each other. But it says if you learn it this way, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, you could be considered this. If you learn it this way, you could be considered this. So maybe doing video, audio, and lighting in that kind of mentality, where if you were a competent A2, you should learn yada 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 yada. If you're a competent A1, you should learn yada 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 yada. And a lot of those will cross over and mirror each other, right? But it's like if you learn in this process here, it's meant to build so that you're building on that same knowledge over and over and over again. And then once you get past that, maybe now you try this other path to say, well, I did Yamaha CL5 and I wanted to learn Dante. Here's a path for that. I want to do Yamaha CL5. I want to learn EQing. Here's a path for that. I did Yamaha ESO. I want to learn, everything I can about a fader. Here's a path for that. And maybe some of these paths are short, right? Like here's a short one. You can get certified in, competence fader guy, whatever that could be called. But I think that kind of opens up a new way of possibility that you can build these mini certs that equal this bigger one. So that says by the time you get done with all 12 of these minis, you are now a certified CL5 operator. And I'm giving a broad example. I'm sure Ed's like there could be 34 of these before you get anything. But broad example here is like you could do that for a lot of different things, because again, a lot of this is just learning the similarities, the fundamentals, and then what the differences are. And I think focusing on the fundamentals first will speed up your thought process for the bigger things. So yeah, again,
I think that goes back to where we talked earlier about like a weekly class, like what you were just saying with that last piece, like mini workshops that maybe add up. The sum of them add up to something bigger, like where you go through like these micro workshops, and maybe at the end, like you said, you get some sort of certificate of completion, or maybe you just need that one little bit, like you're having a problem. What's a DCA on a CL5 and how do I use it? What's DCA spill? And okay, great, we've got a little mini module that's just about DCAs. Come learn. I do see though that we also have a question that came in, Omar, if you want to on the Zoom side.
Yeah, so I see that question. I can answer that real quickly. And again, if you guys want to end early, I'm thinking 15 minutes early is not a big deal, but I'll answer this one real quickly. So Howard here is saying, I would love to see some content dedicated to dealing with clients and stakeholders on site. Often I find myself dealing with people directly, face to face, who may be stressed or with hard to manage expectations. I think this aspect can be easily overlooked as a technician. I 100% agree with you. I don't want to insult anybody. If you're new to AV Tech Talks, AV Tech Talks is what we consider hard skills. These are where you learn the hard skills and we learn kind of software stuff. Obviously, this topic is a little bit different. We are kind of bleeding into some realms here. The AV podcast is meant for those softer skills, which is exactly what you're talking about here. Those face-to-face clients, how to interact with your coworkers, how to interact with the clients directly, how to interact with the end client, the end of the end clients, right? Not just your client, but the client that hired that client, and how to deal with how to present yourself properly in a show scenario. AVE podcast dived into a lot of those things, as well as self-care, self-support, and topics like that. We've done things as far as dress code, not particularly like what you should and should not dress code particularly, but what you should and shouldn't wear. Some ideas about the optics or the presentation that you give off to others by wearing XYZ type of things. We've done shows on healing, mental health. We've done shows on exactly what you said earlier, on clients, right? On the exact, not so far the stakeholders, but I would love to see some content dedicated to dealing with clients and stakeholders on site. We've done exactly stuff like that. What are the optics of you on site versus, you coming in saying XYZ versus presenting yourself XYZ versus talking to someone XYZ. Things that may be overlooked, and like what people are looking for in a person, how to stand out as an individual or as a tech when you're on site, not by being that squeaky wheel, but by being the person that's always there, always helping out, always doing a helping hand. That's the guy that's going to get more work more often, right? You want to be the hardest worker, but you also don't want to be the hardest worker that's working harder because you're working harder. You want to also work smarter. So the podcast covers a lot of those individual talks. I get that's kind of what we're doing tonight here on the AV podcast. We're trying to figure out what you guys want educational wise to continue what we're doing here in the AV Tech Talks and on future projects that we have going on. But the main goal with the podcast is exactly what you're saying here, is content dedicated to dealing with clients and stakeholders on site, and not only that, but dealing with your coworkers, your employees on tour, things to think about, considerations. We have a couple topics actually coming out soon about when traveling, shared hotels versus shared hotel rooms versus like a shared home versus individual rooms. We got some strong comments about that already in the chats. That's a topic we'll be bringing up here very soon. That AVE podcast is done a little bit differently than the AV Tech Talks. It's a 1-hour session on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. That's between Austin and myself, and that format is open to the public as well. We also invite you into the to the chat as well if you want to be there physically and not only just in the comments. But we do talk about that, and if you have any recommendations or anything you want to see in particular, we can always reiterate those or talk to that. Or if you want to be on the show with us, we can do that as well. We're always looking to talk about what you guys want to talk about, and we're always accepting people who want to be on the show. We try our best to make it so all you have to do is show up and do what you do best, right? Which is present or talk or speak or educate. Edemy, Chris will figure out the rest. Pretty much, we'll get the event up doing. We'll do the promotion. We'll do the content. We'll do some of the verbiage for you. You just got to come on the show, and we'll make it as easy as that.
And the podcast, you can see that pretty much from the social media, Facebook and YouTube, right? You guys simulcast.
Yeah, so we do.
Yep.
Yeah. AV Tech Talks and AV Tech Talks and the podcast. Once we hit, I believe it's another 8. So if any of you who's watching tonight are on LinkedIn, we need to get 120 followers in order for us to post onto LinkedIn, and then we can start posting there as well. So you guys can tune in LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. I know Facebook is hit or miss, and we do have quite a few followers who only get on Facebook to follow us, and we highly appreciate that. But we want to be fair to everybody, so we are trying to get ourselves a high enough following, which isn't a lot. We have 10,000 total. All we need is 120 of you guys to follow us on LinkedIn, and we will have permission for our Restream account and StreamYard accounts to post to LinkedIn as well, and that'll be the kind of our last frontier as far as sharing to multiple platforms.
Yeah, very cool. And yeah, the podcast is great. But basically, wherever you're watching right now, you should be able to just come back to if you're on YouTube, you can watch it on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook, you can go back to the AV Educate Facebook page, and Wednesday night it'll just show up at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So Omar, my radio is starting to blow up for things that aren't important to me. But if you're okay, maybe we can wrap a little early tonight. And then next week we'll be back. Even though tonight, because I'm on the road and we're not streaming our normal way, I still want to thank DVE Store for their continued support. Normally, you would be seeing us in 1080p because of their support. Unfortunately, tonight I don't have my vMix set up with me. I was lucky to even just grab a laptop and get internet. They just gave me internet in my container. I'm in basically a storage container. I have 2 Grand MAs next to me and a QL1, and I'm central QLab is running. I'm running control for a Halloween exhibit of sorts out in Long Island, and unfortunately don't have my whole setup, but if I did, you would be getting us in 1080p, and that's thanks to DVE Store. That's dvestore.com. Guy Cochran and his team are excellent, so go visit them at dvestore.com and let them know that you heard about them from AV Tech Talks. And the next time I have my home set up, you'll get us in 1080p, and you'll get to experience all the glorious resolution that they give us. So thank you to dvestore.com. Cool. So yeah, if you're good, Omar, we did get Rob through in a couple more. He wants some D3, virtual D3 training, Lumen, Resolume, watch out basics to compare and contrast, a little Pandora's box as well. We've done classes on Lumen and watch out, so you can always go to our archives and find some of those. But that would be a cool, oh, I just did something really weird to my screen there. But that would be a cool kind of like comparison thing to look at those, how they are similar and different. Luis Jerry Torres just said, thank you guys for all you do and for our community. Thank you. And Rob White again, thank you very much for keeping this going every week. We appreciate you guys appreciating the show. You know, we're here so that you guys have something to see, and you know, we're trying to help lift the whole community. Make sure you join us on Discord. I don't have the link handy because, again, I don't have all of my stuff immediately available, but there is an AV Tech Talks Discord where the community can talk in between episodes. So make sure you find us on there. If you don't, you can look at old episodes. They'll have them. We always link them towards the end of the show. Again, I don't have it handy, but you can always message us too, and we'll get you an invite link to Discord so you can join and post. And there's people, I mean, our looking to hire channel on our Discord is just like every day. I think people are posting jobs, and you know, people are getting hired from within the community. So it's pretty great place to be for that aspect. But we also just share. So thank you guys for taking part in that, and hopefully you guys can all join us, and we can just keep growing that community. Yeah, great. So I'm pretty good. I should probably do another lap, make sure that none of the lights in any of the pumpkins here have gone out. That's what this is, a nice big huge pumpkin Halloween thing, but that's where I'm working. That's why I have a nice orange hat. So they know I'm, you know, I'm not a pumpkin, but I'm event staff. So, but yeah, so thank you Tim for getting sucked into joining us on the panel. I just kind of promoted him when it was just me and him so that I wasn't by myself until Omar got in. And thank you, Omar, for manning the show most of the night while I ran and put out a couple fires. And hopefully we'll see you guys again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right.